gaude berriro 3-2-1 irratian, eta baditu gure alboan bi artista berri. Jaialdi honetan, ez kasu honetan aurkezpen bat edo ekintza edo performanceren bat aurkezten duten bi artista, baizik eta lehen elkarrizketaren batean aipatu dugun bezala ikuskizunak bezain garrantzitsuak dira festival honetan, workshop edo tailerrak ikasleei eta interesatuta dagoen jendeari artistarekin egoteko eta beraiek lantzen dituzten gai horiek lantzeko aukera ematea. Tenemos aquí con nosotros a dos nuevos invitados y decía que, bueno, en este caso no es que presenten una obra en concreto, como es la mayoría de los casos de los que nos vienen a acompañar aquí a este espacio de radio, pero no por ello es menos importante, porque una de las facetas principales de este festival es también ese, ¿no? El dar la oportunidad a estudiantes, a gente interesada en las nuevas formas escénicas, de estar y de compartir con artistas, bueno, pues sus conocimientos y esa manera de descubrir esas nuevas formas de hacer, ¿no? Por lo tanto, David, si te apetece, los presentamos y empezamos con la entrevista.
Here we have with us Marc Rees. Marc Rees is a curator, but also an artist who works in site-specific discipline or a specific field of the plastic art. So, and Guillermo Weickert, sorry.
That's fine.
He's a Spanish creator, also in the field of performing arts. They are working together in the workshop scheduled in the festival, but your collaboration is really old.
It is. We are actually very old ourselves, although we don't look it. So I think it was, when was it, Guillermo, that we first met? I think it was
2006.
2006, all those years ago. In Newcastle, yeah. It was a kind of workshop for creative artists of many different disciplines, and we met there, and it was a creative falling in love, and we made some spontaneous works together, which were very exciting within that context, and so we shared a very special kind of artistic relationship, and I invited Guillermo to work with me on a show called For Mountain, Sand and Sea for National Theatre Wales, one of their first productions, and that was very exciting to bring Guillermo to Wales to work on that. And since then I've always wanted to work with him more and more, so when I had the opportunity to come and do the workshop here, and Matteo invited me, I would only say yes if I could bring Guillermo with me to hold my hand. So this is why he's here, to hold my hand. And but it's something that I want, I really enjoy working with Guillermo, and also I'm going to work with him again in the future also.
Today you have started to work in the workshop. Explain us a little bit more about the workshop, the people who you have discovered there, you have started to work with.
Yes.
The place, because the place is also a special place linked to the festival.
Yes, it's a very special place. It wasn't the first place. I think the first place that I was interested in was the paper factory, La Papella, and which was huge, and that was very exciting for me, because often the most important thing, of course, in site-specific theatre is the site itself. So I was very drawn to that, and I like the history of the paper factory. But unfortunately we couldn't use that because of, I think they started to renovate or to prepare the land or something, but then they offered the space, the cookie factory, and the cookie factory, I only saw it on video, but I liked it, and yesterday was the first time I saw it, but it's great because also because of its history, because also but the people who are now organizing it have a great philosophy about making something which is social, and this is really important, because the fundamental thing about site-specific theatre is it's also about community, responding to the community and the people who are working there now. Of course, there are no factory workers because it's closed, but they are now the new workers, they're culture workers, and they have very kind of positive attitude. So it's great to meet them. and also it was very important for me to have the participants from different disciplines. So not only dancers, I mean Guillermo is a dancer, I have studied dance, I did dance also, but I really wanted to work with architects and artists, plastic artists and lighting designers, anybody really. So it was important to have that mix. And I often work with architects because architects often bring something new and exciting, and they also learn something new from me, from the kind of physical side. So it's a really good, I'm very happy with the mix. And it was great today to work with Guillermo. Guillermo started physically, and I think a lot of them are not used to working physically or touching each other, so it was like I think they were fine with it. It's really important, I think, that you respond, within the placement of the body within the site. And no, it was a very interesting day. It went very quickly, and it was a good day, I think. We only have 3 days to explore, but it's just giving the participants some tools, some kind of quick ideas how to respond to a site. Because normally, you would spend weeks and weeks or a year learning about a site, or immersing yourself in the community and learning the history of that site and developing ideas. Well, here we have only 3 days to develop certain kind of ideas that you can put to practice in order to respond to such a site. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. In relation to the idea of respect the place,
yes.
The history of the place.
Yes, absolutely.
I remember when you, as curator, you have great a collective exposition in La Laboral. I was really surprised the way you walked there, because you were very respectful. Respect with the place.
Yeah, but that's really important. You have to respect.
And the history of the place, because this place, the La Laboral in Gijón, is a very significant
absolutely.
place there.
I think you have to be sensitive. As an artist, you can't just like parachute yourself in with your ego and arrogance. That's a horrible way of working. I don't believe in that. That's why you have to really respect the history. You have to, to understand the history, the significance, the importance, the politics around it. And it's a very, it's a very important building. It's a very political building. So you can't make art. You have to make art the response to that. So therefore, in the terms of the artists that you select, there were 20 artists involved. So you had 12 from Wales and 8 local artists. So of course the artists from Wales didn't understand the importance of the building, but then they could absorb it. But that's up to me as curator then to weave it all together as a coherent experience for the audience. So was very exciting to do that. But it's you have to it's about also working with the community. That's really important. I think you have to respect that history. I mean, that's what site-specific is. You're responding specifically to that site. I mean, I always describe myself as an archaeologist, sort of exhuming the multi-layered history of a site. Then you find a fossil of either fact or fiction, and then you pass it on to an artist, and they will deduce or reinterpret that history. But then it's up to me to put them all together, all those groups, all these artifacts together, and make it a collective experience for an audience.
En este caso, Guillermo, ¿cómo has entendido tú, en este caso, la colaboración, que no era para crear en sí una pieza, sino para hacer este workshop, ¿no? Es decir, una cosa es colaborar con una idea concreta, hacer una obra site-specific, y otra cosa es, ir a un sitio que tiene su significado, pero ahí colaborar con otros, ¿no? Otros que además seguramente la mayoría son locales, probablemente conozcan más a fondo o tengan alguna relación incluso con ese edificio. ¿Tú cómo te lo has planteado en la colaboración?
Pues mira, cuando Marc y yo nos conocimos en Newcastle, justo el tema del encuentro que nos reunía era la colaboración artística, y esta mañana recordábamos con los participantes del taller que hay muchas maneras de crear, pero nosotros entendemos en diálogo justamente la expresión artística, ¿no? Y que interactuar con otras personas no solo no te merma, sino que te completa y te ayuda a definirte. Entonces, desde ese punto ya hemos asumido también con los participantes del taller que nosotros vamos a ser más que venir a hacer un site specific en Open Your Collective Wow, lo que venimos es un poco como de turistas, porque como ha dicho Marc, no tenemos el tiempo de hacer nada más. Pero en ese caso yo creo que sitúa a Nerea y a Karim, lo sitúan en un punto muy interesante porque son la llave para toda la información que tienen y los estamos usando un poco como piedra angular y piedra de toque, y es muy interesante porque, como ha dicho Marc, también son dos personas que tienen una visión que va mucho más allá de lo que están haciendo. Se plantean también las repercusiones que pueden tener lo que hacen, cómo será el futuro de lo que hacen, si es susceptible de ser pervertido o no. Entonces, toda esta multitud de capas yo creo que tiene mucho que ver con la propuesta que hace Marc Rees Site Specific, que es precisamente construir más que una pieza o más que un dispositivo, como un tejido que funciona a muchas capas y que funciona casi imitando el proceso cognitivo de la mente. Así que me lo he planteado como una oportunidad maravillosa de seguir haciendo lo que más me gusta, y también con una persona que en el caso de Marc, como te ha dicho, que tiene como un nivel artístico para mí admirable, pero sigue siendo muy sencillo en el trato, muy humano, y enfocando siempre no en la dificultad artística, no en el reto, sino haciendo de lo más sencillo el tema de trabajo, ¿no? Entonces eso para mí tiene un potencial que, como metáfora del tipo de cultura casi que me interesa, y que creo que se relaciona mucho incluso con el tema del festival, ¿no? Que huye un poco del concepto de espectáculo para ir a otro tipo de manifestación artística que impregna mucho más muchas capas de la sociedad y de la comunidad, ¿no?
Guillermo, te voy a aprovechar un poco porque mientras estaba escuchando estaba también recordando probablemente uno de los site specific más drôle, que utiliza la palabra francesa, más extraños, pero también los más divertidos que yo he podido ver en los últimos tiempos. Y fue aquella acción que tú tenías montada en relación con un personaje que tiene un accidente de coche, teóricamente, en un paraje inaudito, que es decir, puede ser como una especie de bosque al lado de una carretera, y que ese personaje empezamos a comprender que ha tenido un accidente aislado, y poco a poco empiezan a pasar una serie de cosas que llaman muchísimo la atención y que empiezan a salir como fuera del marco de lo que teóricamente debía ocurrir. Yo no sé si para ti aquello fue como un primer bautizo en el site specific, si eso era para ti un site specific o si eso era más bien una creación en el cual tú luego el entorno o el contexto te era un poco menos trascendente y lo adaptabas.
No, en ese caso, que fíjate, esa pieza es completamente un site specific, que como resultado creó una pieza que se podía mover, pero esa pieza se generó en el festival Mapa que tenían Tomás Aragá y Sofía Asensio en San Mori, y que era precisamente un festival de site specific. Nos daban un trozo de campo en Girona y durante 15 días creábamos una pieza específica, y esa pieza de la que tú hablas respondía al tema de ese año, que era paisaje equivocado, y yo buscaba dentro de lo que podía ser una equivocación a muchos niveles, tanto en mi carrera profesional como en mis creencias personales. Lo que pasa es que tú luego viste ese trabajo hecho en Tarrasa, porque bueno, consideré que el resultado como pieza, en los dos lugares, que el resultado como pieza me apetecía moverlo. Entonces, pues en algunos sitios, yo creo que en Tarrasa seguía siendo muy site specific, y también por ejemplo cuando lo hice en Madrid, que era en medio de la Castellana, y ya se adaptaba como pieza, no como proceso de site specific para ese lugar, pero siempre había como una idea de llevarlo. Lo que pasa es que más que el proceso en sí, lo que se movía era la pieza, ¿no? Pero para mí sí sigue siendo un poco de site.
So this is a very interesting idea. How site specific can evolve in a traditional, conventional piece. Is it possible for you, Marc, or not?
But do you mean as the subject to put
he means like, for example, if you create something like a site specific and then you tour it like a piece.
Yeah, but then it's not site specific then.
Yeah, but so, for me it's like the result of a site specific. It can become a piece.
Yes, of course. Yes. But then it ceases to become site specific. The origins are site specific. But if you put a piece of theatre in a bar, doesn't make it site specific. That's bar specific. Right? It makes sense. So this is like, we had an interesting point today. One of the participants brought this up. She was frustrated because now everybody's saying everything is site specific. So you can create something. You can create Shakespeare in a factory, of course, but you utilize the spaces. You can put Lady Macbeth in the bathroom or wherever, but of course you're responding to the specifics of that site. If you were to change it, if you would take it to another site, then you would put it somewhere else, or you would rearrange it. That's the exciting thing. Otherwise, you might as well put it in the theatre. Of course, people then build theatres or put a black box theatre in a factory. That doesn't make it site specific. That's putting a theatre in a factory. So there are very clear difference.
But it's different to define the line, because, for example, you remember the piece that Gerald in National Theatre, he took like a Greek tragedy,
yes,
and he created, apart from this one site specific, you remember, for this like military constraint, and all. So it's not the for me it's how do you conceive and how do you create the piece what makes it or not.
I mean, with National Theatre Wales, the piece you're talking about was by Mike Pearson and Mike Brooks, actually, who you spoke to yesterday. It's Coriolanus. So you put Coriolanus, but the idea was the site was a former, a military army camp where they practice fire and firing and with tanks. And it's an old village, so it's perfect. And they had permission to create the performance there in these shell buildings, and the audience would go there. But it would work beautifully as a piece of site specific. You could not put that anywhere else because it's totally specific for that site. And I think they were inspired by the site, and then to put Coriolanus. I don't know which one came first, but that is the beauty of that, and it made it a completely unique and very successful work. And then they went and then they did the Persians. No, that was the Persians. Sorry. Then Coriolanus. They put Coriolanus in an aircraft hangar. I mean, the aircraft hangar had nothing to do with the play, but then they made it into a very beautiful architectural space that resonated fantastically well, and everybody had headphones, so everybody was talking very intimately, so you could hear these conversations wherever you were in this enormous space. The space had terrible acoustics, therefore that's why they had headphones, but it worked beautifully and much better because it was a very intimate experience for the audience.
Returning to the cookie factory, I would like to ask you, I suppose you've done a bit of documentation, but what that place is, not just the cookie factory, but all the island, the peninsula, isn't it? Because it's supposed to be next year big, Bilbao's big urban news center, isn't it? There's a big project with Zaha Hadid and all that. It's true that maybe on some years it was supposed to begin before and all that, but do you take that into account? Not just the history, what it has been, maybe you also think about what are the perspectives of that place?
No, absolutely. It's not just about the past. It's about the future and the potential future, but also yes, I mean, because of the people that were working at the open space, the cookie factory, they were able to take us on a tour of the building and the buildings around, the buildings that were there, that are not there, and they are very clear. They are very excited by the potential, but also very nervous about the potential, because we all know what gentrification can do. It's fine having star architects like all these people, Gary and Zaha Hadid and Philip Stark. That's fine, but it's not just about them. You cannot erase the past and build a new future. You have to. I think there are fantastic buildings there. We explored them today, and we went to one building which is amazing, which is in 2014. Last year it was fully functioning, and now it's a mess. It's a complete and utter tip, because everything has been ripped out. I mean, I think that's a great shame, because it was a beautiful building, but now there's nothing left, so you have to knock it down. So I think there has to be, it's fine. I mean, it's great having the effect of these buildings, Bilbao being a prime example of this, but it has to be incorporated with with the old and how that can work. And I think it does work very well, but we have to keep that. I'm sure that's going to be part of the plan, I hope. But yes, in responding to site-specific work, you have to take all this on board. It's really important, especially in working with architecture as the main kind of stimulus.
But anyway, I would like to again do this effort of rebalance the expectations about this, because this is a workshop about site-specific, not a proper site-specific of the place. So
exactly. So
no one can it's 3 days for. We are not pretending to do a process that normally will take like months.
Yeah, or years.
I would like to propose to you a little play, something more funny. You can imagine a wandering place or wandering site where you imagine to work. Where you can find this place? It's a specific place, or it's an imaginary place?
You mean an ideal space?
Exactly, an ideal.
I don't think there is. I think you can't have an idea, because the space gives you the idea. Because you can't. I'm not. If I, you don't know. For example, currently I'm doing a project on Patagonia. So 150 years ago, the Welsh people established a colony there in Patagonia in Argentina. So, and I'm doing a project about that. And we were looking for a building in Wales that somehow connected to it. And in the area where 66 of the original 150 settlers came from, we were looking there. And then in the end, we discovered, very bizarrely, that the Royal Opera House in Covent Garden store all their ballets and operas there in this huge factory. And it's an incredible space, but also as a metaphor for a colony, it's where fantasy on an epic scale is stored, maintained and preserved, so it's perfect as a metaphor. And this, I would never have used that unless, it was accidentally we came across it, but then understanding that metaphor and how how it can work for the audience is really exciting. But, so I think it's very difficult. You have to be very open to those sites, I think. I don't really have a dream space, because I don't know what's out there, and you can't. Ideally, of course, what's lovely if it has a multi-layered history. It goes way back, and it has several functions, or has had several functions, and now it has a different function. That's always very interesting. Of course, if there are former workers there who remember certain things, you interview them, but it can't be site-specific. Can be, I did a show, the one with Guillermo, it was a whole town. We didn't use one site, we used 24 sites. So it's not, that's the whole town. So the whole site can be site-specific, town-specific. So it's like drawing on certain histories of many aspects, or drawing on stories, opening a story shop, taking the stories and creating narratives from that. And I always think it's interesting, I always say collapsing time, so you use a certain period and then you use contemporary and then you put them together. And that's also very interesting.
But let's imagine that you are artist and I am your producer.
Okay.
And you have needs to work in.
Yes, I have needs. If you say to me, I'm going to commission you, I'd say take me to some fantastic spaces, empty spaces, or in derelict spaces, spaces with different histories, connections, and and then I would go on a tour and you would show me, and then I would usually work with a collaborator and we would go there, or an architect would go, right, what's possible? It's like going to Laboral. With Matteo invited me to Laboral. It took 6 hours to explore that building. It was extraordinary. And the wing that we used was a site that hadn't been seen since the 50s. And it still had the furniture all piled up. And what was great to our advantage, people wanted to go and see it. Some of them didn't care about the theatre, but they just wanted to see what was there, because they remember the building. So I think you have to recognise the want and the desire of people, and the curiosity of people is really interesting, because people are curious to go there. So I think if their building has a certain curiosity within the community, a certain important history, then people want to go in there again. That's really valuable, I think.
And what about this place?
What about this place? I mean, interestingly, I was offered this as the #1, and I rejected it. Sorry, Mr. Stark. But for me, it's like, I mean, it's nice, it's beautiful, but it's a functioning building. It's great, but for me, it's much more exciting working in the cookie factory, which has a resonance. I always talk about the host and then the ghost structure. Yes, I could do something here, but it's much more exciting to find an old building. This has already been reinterpreted and reconfigured, and it's done. So I think I wouldn't say no, but it wouldn't be my first choice. In fact, it wasn't my first choice.
We do it every day. We are defining this building all the days, and every time. No.
So, say that again.
No. We are redefining this building.
Yeah, defining. Yes, absolutely. No, and also he did. Stark did a maximum design. Everything is so. There's nothing else really to add. I think it would be. Yes, you could do performance. I'm sure there have been performances in here, but it would be very challenging to do a site-specific piece in this space. I think really challenging because there's no more space. He's kind of filled everything, every corner. Because he's a great architect. So it's like whether you like it or not, whether you think it's arrogant or not. For me, it would be very difficult to work in here. So that's why I didn't want to do it here.
Yeah, I think just to go finishing. Yesterday we were talking with, I don't know if it was with Elsie Ansare or with Senora Polarowska about films and pictures that let us pause and think about where we are, what we are, and our way of being in places, isn't it? Site-specific pieces can also make the spectator stop and think about, okay, it's a place, because my sensation is, yesterday we were talking about that in our everyday life, we just go through places, just pass through places, but we don't really take the time to feel where we are or how we are, the act of being in a place. So maybe it's also valuable to have for a moment or have an hour for an hour that type of consciousness about how we how we feel in places, because we do places too. Buildings are just buildings, but if there's no one inside refilling them, they're useless in a way. I don't know what you think.
No, I think you're very good. No, I think you're absolutely right. I think that's site-specific is an opportunity for you to examine the familiar, and for you to discover new things about that. It's almost like holding up a mirror, and then you can reflect upon yourself and what's behind you and your environment. I think you walk past buildings every day, and this building is now functioning very well, but sometimes you forget that it used to be a wine depot or wine place, right? So I think it's sort of it's very important that site-specific work can reflect, can give you an opportunity as a viewer, as an audience, to reflect about that and your position within architecture, within your home, within within everyday life. I think it's a good opportunity to do that.
Even to do the workshop there, I think it was funny today to feel how the perception and the relationship with the space change after you do. Maybe it's not the most comfortable place to do like a physical training or whatever, but if you do it there, you start to relationship and to perceive in a very different ways the space and to discover things and realize things that you will never if you don't stay there for a while, no? In the sense that you say it.
Okay, so thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you. See you.
And we hope that you stay some more days around here and enjoy also the festival, the artists, and all the people.
Spend all the paper you have there in the La Papelera.
Yes.
Because I have seen some pictures where you have tons and tons of paper to work for working these days. No?
Yeah. So
spend all the paper.
Yes, of course. Thank you very much, man. Thank you.